Hey everybody, Qroo here. Welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about what I consider to be the best reference guide for learning Spanish. It is called A New Reference Grammar to Modern Spanish. Now, admittedly, the title's a little awkward for my liking, but the book itself is outstanding. Just to be clear, this is not a sponsored post. I don't know the folks who made this book, and I actually bought this copy with my very own money. I do, however, have an Amazon affiliate link to this book in the description section of the video, and it is also pinned to the top of the comments. If you decide to get a copy for yourself, I'd really appreciate if you went through my link. It doesn't cost you a dime to do that, but it does help me out. Why am I even doing a video about this book? Well, it all stems from a recent video I did about how I became fluent in Spanish. I shared my journey. Well, during that video, I mentioned a book that I found that helped me learn the subjunctive, etc. I didn't give the title or say much else about it, but that didn't stop viewers from asking me what book I was referring to. Well, it was this book. Well, not this book, but an older version of this book. I gotta tell you, and I'm not exaggerating here, this book was a game changer for me. It answered every possible question I could ever have about the Spanish language, and it did so in a really easy to follow format and with tons of examples. I really like examples. There are different ways to learn the language out there, and I know some folks are like anti-learning the grammar, but I can tell you, in my case, learning the Spanish grammar helped me to become conversational more quickly. It was like having a blueprint to the language or some secret code of sorts that, I could learn these constructions and then plug in vocabulary to say a wide variety of things, even though I may never have heard that particular sentence in Spanish in my life, but the sentence I threw out was grammatically correct. I had to learn Spanish quickly just out of necessity. At the time, I was working as a deputy sheriff in a large Spanish-speaking area, and I needed to be able to communicate as quickly as possible. I'm responding to different calls. Some are, crimes in progress, some past occurred, some are just civil disputes between neighbors, but I had to be able to communicate. Learning the Spanish grammar made that possible. What it did is it gave me a kickstart so I could start talking to people. And once I was talking to people, that's when I started to develop an ear for the language. And, I started to become more proficient in the language. Well, I can tell you that this book was a key factor in my success. And when people ask me now, how do you know so much about Spanish grammar? It was the earlier version of this book had a lot to do with it, actually. I don't even have that older version of the book anymore. It got thrown out over the years. But after people started asking me about the book because of that video, I decided to go ahead and buy the latest edition of it to see if it was still an amazing resource, still the amazing resource that I thought it was back then. It's certainly pricier than I remember. A paperback version like this is about 48 bucks on Amazon. Of course, it is 608 pages, so it's not like it's a pamphlet or something. But the question is the price worth it? Well, I spent the last few days reading through it, and I have to say, I'm more impressed by it now than I was decades ago when I first read it. Perhaps because they added a lot more content to it. It is definitely thicker. I think it was like this back in the day. They've added quite a bit. Or perhaps because my Spanish is just much better now, and I can truly appreciate just how detailed the content really is. I'm not sure, but whatever it is, this is still the best Spanish reference guide I have ever seen. Now, this is not the kind of book that you just sit down and read cover to cover, although I suppose you can. And in fact, thinking back, I think I reached a point where I just did that, but that's not what it's designed, how it's designed to be used. You go right to the section you're interested in learning more about. Let's say you want to learn more about the Spanish word cuál. I go right to that section of the book. I can see how to use it correctly, and it includes examples from different countries. Now, that last part is important because anyone who's familiar with Spanish knows that it is not exactly the same across the board. That applies to grammar, vocabulary, and even preferences in colloquial speech. This book talks about those dialect differences all the way through it. I mean, even just under cuál, you have a section that says dialect differences. If you're learning Spanish on your own, you may have experienced those types of dialect differences before. For example, you may learn how to say something one way, which would be correct in, say, Mexico and several other countries, but then someone in Barcelona tells you you're absolutely wrong, and vice versa. Well, this book can help you navigate that better. So when you read through and you're trying to say focus more on European Spanish, and it says that this is the preference for European Spanish, that's going to help you in your studies. As much as I like this book, I will say that this book is not for everyone. If you're not concerned with Spanish grammar, or you don't care why they say it this way or that way, you're not going to get much out of this book. It's really not going to be worth it for you to buy it. However, if you're the type of student who wants to know how the sausage is made, wants to understand the finer details of the language in order to speak it better, cares about those little subtleties in the grammar, then this book is absolutely for you. It will propel your Spanish. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and until next time, hasta luego.